Hi there. Today we are talking about cultural appropriation and genocide, which is a really heavy topic. So I was really glad to read these articles. So it starts with an article that is fiction, like a fictional interaction between characters. So it starts with a notorious trickster of the Anishinaabe tribe, Winnebago. And I really like this article because it pertains to all of us as Chippewas, as we call ourselves at Central Michigan University. So, Winnebago visits CMU, curious about the origin of the Chippewa name and how they consulted the tribes. So here he meets Makwa and engages in a light banter, and I think this makes it easier to understand because they don't go straight into information. They just they ease their way into it. So, Winnebago and Makwa, they visit the old mascot who explained that there is no mascot for CMU anymore, just a logo, which isn't even a logo, it's just a nickname. People are always ignorant to the harm that this nickname shares. So, CMU was originally the Bearcats, then the Dragons, and then in the 40s, CMU adopted the Chippewas for pageantry in the band until the 70s. Native American logos disconnected in 1989 from a 1984 report citing the use of tribal names as racist. So to put this into perspective of how long ago this was, Taylor Swift was born in 1989 and she's pretty young, so this is very recent. So a lot of resistance was met when these statements came out that it was racist because people thought a lot of funding would be decreased. So the article points out that people tend to think of racism in the past, like things like Jim Crow laws, when racism is definitely present in society through the usage of these Native American mascots. So CMU started getting rid of the obviously racist things like the names of the dining halls, the residence halls, like, for example, the dining hall was called the Reservation. So, in 1991, affirmative action openly imposed the usage of the Chippewa logo, giving 8 reasons why. 2 of them including is that cost should not be a limiting factor and that Native American as mascots are demeaning. So, the president at the time, Placha, sought to retain the logo, fearing a decrease in alumni funding and donations, which is pretty cowardly, if you ask me. The Civil Rights Commission said that the continued use of the Chippewa name would lead to acts of racism. And a big argument when people talk about whether we should change the name or not is they say, oh, well, the tribe lets us use this, when only the Saginaw Chippewa tribe was consulted when there are many other Chippewa tribes throughout the nation. So the Saginaw Chippewa tribe, although we use their name, they do not give permission to speak on all the tribes. So CMU bought their approval in a way by giving Native Americans royalties from the sales made in the Chippewa name. So CMU, which this is what I think is really, really awful, is that CMU owns the rights to the name Chippewa and is not legally obligated to seek approval from the tribes. So CMU retains the license for the word Chippewa, which I think is fucked up. So people think that Native Americans should be proud and honored that we use their names when I think it's very demeaning, and I think it's really really important to note that the silence of the other tribes does not mean they approve of this. So, the second article that we read was by Mary Crow Dog, which I read about her in another class as well. She wrote Lakota Woman, which is a really good read. So, basically, she's speaking about how Indigenous people were taken from residence halls and forced into boarding. Sorry, my thing is beeping. So, in the 20th century, in the 19th century, Native Americans' children were taken from their homes and put into boarding schools. At these boarding schools, they cut their hair. Made it forbidden to speak their native language, changed all their clothes. And so Mary Crow Dog talks about this as basically kidnapping. So I think something really interesting that Mary Crow Dog writes in the end is she talks about how she mistrusted every white person she met for a long time based on the bad experiences she had, because she'd only had bad experiences. So later, when she met white people that she had in common, things she had in common with, um, she was able to form these friendships. And something really cool that wasn't in the article that Mary Crow Dog did was she traveled around to see what other tribes were like. And she got into she made friends with a lot of the feminist movement, although she didn't agree with everything they thought. I think it's really cool that she kind of joined up with them. So she ended with the note that racism breeds racism in diverse. And so that's what she thought about, like, her interactions with white people. So the third thing we read was, well, we saw it was a video. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is saviorship. During the formation of our nation and formation of these boarding schools, the goal was to eradicate the Native American people, when this, in a way, led Native Americans to keep fighting for their ability to be alive. So they decided to, so this is when they adapted the model, kill the Indian, save the man. So they thought if they can eradicate the Native Americans, they should assimilate. So this led to Native Americans' kids who were being adopted. They were put into white families, because now that they couldn't have boarding schools, they needed to find a way to assimilate these children even more. So yeah, this is horrible. So this is something that we never talk about in school. So I'm really glad that we learned about it today.